What am I even doing here? Art Business Morning Show. Okay. We are talking about the three buckets that all artists and photographers fall into. So you fall into one of these buckets, and specifically the importance of focus, the three buckets identified, and what to do depending on the bucket you are in. I have to pause there so the podcast editor can put some music in. So, welcome to another edition of the Art Business Morning Show, the show that will put you on the path to a six-figure a year plus art business. And I want to start out today's episode talking about focus. Okay, focus, so important. Such a simple word, focus. Everybody knows what it means. Easy enough to do for a short period of time, right? Stay focused. For sustained periods of time, though, a little bit harder to do, right? Different kettle of fish, that, like the English like to say. That's a different kettle of fish. It's hard to stay focused at anything for a long period of time, right? And what I find in my conversations with artists and photographers throughout the fruited plains, across the fruited plains, and this is both customers and then, non-customers that are coming on the art business workshops, is a lot of times based on the questions that they ask or what I see them doing, they are working on problems, i.e., their focus is in the wrong place. They're working on problems for buckets that they're not in. You have to be focused on the bucket you're in so you can get out of that bucket and go into the next bucket. So I want to talk about the buckets. I want to talk about focus. Focus two ways, too. There's two sides to the focus coin, right? On one side, you have to focus on what's important, right? And then on the other side, you have to completely ignore everything that's not, right? You have to focus on, you have to stay very cognizant of what not to focus on, the whole overcook, undercook special. So the genesis of this whole thing for me is that I'm in task this year with improving our in-house marketing agency. And if you're not in the know, at Art Storefronts, we have an in-house marketing agency that offers a bunch of different services, one-offs and recurring services to help our customers out. Okay, wonderful. Why am I bringing this all up? Is this some sort of subtle sales pitch? What? Are you kidding me? How long have you been listening to this podcast? Of course, it's a subtle sales pitch. Everything I do is a subtle sales pitch. But if you have been listening to this podcast for any period of time, or this live Instagram show, or Facebook show, or YouTube show, you know that, I like talking about where we are at this point in time, the latest, most up-to-date thinking, and I want to be able to tell the story. It's not a sales pitch. It's these problems that we are attempting to solve here at Art Storefronts, whether you are a customer or not. These are all the biggest problems you guys have. I already know. I talked to thousands of you. Okay, so my job entails doing two kinds of marketing, right? Marketing to prospects, those that could potentially become customers, and marketing to my customers. Okay. And despite the fact that my end conversion in mind, if you're not a customer, of course, I want you to become a customer. That's what my job is. But if you are a customer, I want you actually consistently working on your marketing. What's interesting about those two buckets of marketing there, to stay on the bucket thing, is the messaging is remarkably similar for both, right? We have to do just as much marketing for the customers that we do have to keep them motivated, to keep them going in the right direction, to not quit on their marketing, as we do for everybody else. So the messaging is remarkably the same. And we're going to get into the buckets here. Okay. 90% of artists and photographers out there fall into bucket one or bucket two. 90% of the people that are listening to this right now are either in bucket one or bucket two. Okay. 90%, 95% of artists and photographers out there want to pay somebody to do all their marketing. They want to have that relationship actually work. Yes, I know that this is you, this is you, this is you. You want to just create, and you don't want to do the business, or you don't want to do the marketing side of things, right? You just don't. And that's okay, right? That's okay. 90% of artists, 90% of photographers are also working on a bunch of stuff that is not relevant for the bucket that they are in, which is why focus is so important, which is why I brought up focus. And so I want to get into the buckets. I want to get into what I think you should be focusing, not focusing on. But before I do, one final, like, again, I know your deepest, darkest desire, okay? It's not even dark. Dark makes it sound weird. Your deepest desire, okay, nearly 100% is just to create and then hand what you create over to somebody else and let them do all the business and marketing. And then you got to just go back and create. I know that's what you all want, okay? That's totally okay. That's everybody's dream. I get it. There is a plan that exists for that as well. I'm happy to tell you. It's called selling through galleries. You just create, you deliver the work to the gallery, they do all the selling in the business for you. Herein lies the problem, though. All right. Herein lies the problem with the gallery model. Yes, they do all the work, but they take 50%. They never tell you who buys your work. Okay. And this is the most important part of it. It really only works out financially for a tiny, tiny, tiny number of artists and photographers. Okay. Your odds of making something resembling a living that maps to the expectations and the dreams that you have as an artist or a photographer in the gallery model, your odds there are slightly better than playing the lottery, by which I mean only slightly. The number that sells through art, through galleries, exclusively, let's just say, and is making an incredible living, that is such a small number of people. And yet most artists and photographers aspirationally are gearing their business that way. And it's just not, it's not realistic. It's not realistic. So few are making a solid living doing that. And there are a whole bunch of others that are doing it where the income is just not significant enough, okay, to justify even a full-time job. They have support from their spouses, or they have side jobs, or something along those lines, right? So it's important to say that, right? It's important to say that. In addition to that, the gallery model is utterly, totally, and completely exploitative to the artist, right? And if you don't like that, all right, you don't like the fact that the gallery model is exploitative. You don't like the fact that they take 50%. You don't like the fact that they don't tell you who's purchasing your work. You can pound sand because guess what? There is a line 50 miles long of artists and photographers that would love to get into that gallery that you're in. And the minute you're out, they will just slide right in and take your spot, right? And the reason that galleries get away with it, the 50% split, right, and not telling you who your customers are, is because it's a very difficult problem to solve. How does the artist, the photographer have time to create, have time to do the marketing, the business work, to grow the business, right? It is a very difficult problem. It is why there are no art or photography specific marketing agencies. I always ask somebody to share one with me, and no one ever can. It's because I don't think they exist, right? Occasionally there's a guru out there, here or there, that'll help you with one thing or another. But by and large, there are not agencies that are servicing artists and photographers. I just don't know of any, and it's just a really, really hard problem to solve, right? Now we're attempting to solve it, and while we have some advantages that others don't, we've been at this for a long time. We have the data on a whole bunch of different customers that are doing incredibly well, and we can attempt to reverse engineer what they did. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a really, really hard process, but we're working on it in earnest because we know it's such an important problem to solve. All of which is to say, it is my plan to build Art Storefronts Plus. Okay, so you sign up, you get a website, you get the marketing help, yes, but you also get some level of agency services on a recurring basis to help you grow your business. And I need to figure out a creative way to combine these one-off services, these recurring services, and so that's going to be a very difficult thing to do, given how hard this problem is. Okay, given that my odds of success are likely not very high, that needs to be said. But challenge accepted. That's what we're trying to do. But I bring all that up to say that is the lay of the land where we are currently, and that's totally okay. But what needs to happen is if I'm going to stand any success with that agency concept, with that agency idea, I need to understand these three buckets. I need to be talking about these three buckets. I need to explain to the people that are in the buckets why they're in the buckets and what they need to work on, what they need to focus on. So that's sort of what's informed where I am right now, right? And you look at going back to the gallery thing, like the galleries only work with people that are in the third bucket. Okay, Well, how the heck do you get through bucket one and bucket two then, right? It's not easy. It's a very difficult world in which you guys inhabit in some capacity. The good news though is, oh shoot, anytime I get a phone call on Instagram, and this is just for your own Instagram streaming knowledge, and you have your AirPods on, it whacks out the audio, and it's really annoying. Will you guys tell me whether or not that fixed the audio on Instagram? And did that fix it? Working or not? Working or not working? Somebody leave me a comment. Anyway, good to know for your Instagram screaming. You really have to get a phone that is not connected if you're going to get phone calls. And let's be honest with you, you're going to get a phone call. It's going to be that person letting you know that your car warranty is about to expire. Most annoying thing in the history of mankind. Is it working? I apologize to break my flow. These are the things that you learn streaming and shipping things. I got to get a second phone. I actually have a second phone. I got to just get it set. Anyway, the 3 buckets, right? I want to talk about the 3 buckets. One, because all of you guys fall into 3 buckets. Oh, it still says it's not working. Let me get it. I'll try again one more time. Step 1, identify the bucket you're in. Step 2, focus on what's going to get you out of that bucket. And what? Step 3, I think that's it. So, all right, let's see if that fixed it. All right, let me know if that fixed it. Otherwise, I have to hang up on Instagram. All right, bucket number 1. Are we ready? Okay. You have not validated your art or photography. You have not validated your art or photography. This is bucket number 1. Okay. And specifically, sorry, Instagram, I'm going to have to end you. It sucks. And one last thing, I got to focus on you guys on Facebook. So you have not validated your art or photography, right? And what does that mean specifically? Apologies for the streaming issues. You have not sold your art, your photography to people not named mom, dad, other relatives, friends, or folks attempting to date you, okay? Stated plainly, you need to sell your work to strangers, okay? You need to sell your work to strangers. And until you do this, you do not know if you have a product that will sell, okay? That you have a product that the market wants. And the rough math on this, if I talk to 10 different artists, 2 out of 10 are in this bucket. Are you in this bucket? 2 out of 10 are in this bucket. And fundamentally, it is so important, okay, so important to get this right before you think. One of the biggest issues I see are people in bucket 1 that think they're in bucket 2 when they're working on bucket 2 problems, which is wasting time. They need to work on bucket 1 problems. And what I always think of is like the Gandalf analogy, right? Like where he's got the staff and he rams that thing into the ground and it's like, you shall not pass, you shall not pass. I'm just trying to keep whatever that demon looking thing out is. Side note, one of my favorite videos on the internet is a guy that dresses up in that Gandalf suit. And this guy's got tremendous cojones. And he gets on a skateboard on a 2-lane road and he's blocking traffic on the road, and there's like 9 cars behind him, and he's just in the road with the Gandalf suit on and the staff, and he's going really slow. And all the cars keep honking at him, and he goes, "You shall not pass." Hilarious video. I got to put that in the show notes. I got to go watch that again. But anyway, it needs to be like Gandalf, right? You shall not pass out of bucket 1 until you have well and truly validated your art. And so many people think they've done this, whether they just don't know the rules, or they're lying to themselves, or they think they validated themselves, but really they phoned in the effort. And it's destructive. It's destructive to the business. And when you understand that you're in the bucket and you're honest with yourself, and you either attempted to sell your art and it didn't sell, you've not attempted to sell your art at all. You've been at it for 1.5 years and you sold 2 pieces. All of those, you have not validated your art, right? And what does everybody do in this bucket, in this stage? They focus on all of the nonsense that is not going to get them out of the bucket in the first place. And you really have to get into a situation where, and what do I mean by that? Nothing else. You don't need a website. You don't need a business card. You don't need a bank account. You don't need to know the tax implications of what's going to happen when you sell all of this art. You don't need to know what your niche is. You don't need to have a brand. You don't need to know about shipping rates. You don't need to know about shipping rates to Canada. You need about shipping rates anywhere. You're not shipping anything. Okay. You don't need to worry about jury shows, awards, likes, comments, or shares. Okay. You need to be laser focused on getting the product to market and attempting to sell it. And if you look at what you're doing, what you're spending your day-to-day time on, what you are busy with, and you can't immediately answer the question on how whatever it is that you're doing is going to have you get your product in your hands and get it in front of strangers, you are working on the wrong thing. Okay. You are working on the wrong thing. You have gotten into the car that is your business and you have set the GPS to hobbyist. Okay. That is what you've done. And rest assured, you are going to get to your destination if you're doing that. You need to focus only on creating the thing, getting samples of the thing, originals or prints, and going and trying to sell it to strangers. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. And I know this is hard, which is why everybody wants to work on everything but this, right? There's nothing else. Just this. Nothing else. And you create it, you get the sample so you can show it. You go show it to strangers. Did it sell or not? Did you try a few different times? Did you really try or did you phone it in? You phoned it in? Okay, really try this time. Did it sell? No, then it's time to try a different subject material, okay? Because nobody wants the product that you're selling. And you rinse and repeat this process, okay, until you get it right, until you get it correct. And then once you do have the product the market wants, you're out of this bucket. You're out of this bucket, you're into the next bucket. You're into bucket number 2. And, solving for this one, it's why we love the in-person shows. It's why we love the live art shows, okay? Because what is the barrier to entry to an in-person show? What is the barrier to entry to running a live art show? You need to have the product created. You need to have the product in your hand to be able to show it off. And you need to get in front of strangers, right? Both of those force you to go and get the thing done, right? So if you're not creating the thing, if you are not ordering samples of the thing, if you're a photographer, or if you're not ordering potentially prints, if you're the painter, or have your originals good to go, and then you are not signed up or planning on or loading the car up or turning the phone on to do a live art show, you are working on the wrong thing. You are working on the wrong thing. And if it didn't sell, you got to go back to square one. That's just the ball game. That's the ball game, right? So when I look at that and when I understand that there's a whole bunch of people in that, I realize I have to create a suite of services that's going to solve for that problem. And I had a conversation with a customer just recently, and it was an awesome conversation. It was amazing. I love this human being like I can't even begin to tell you, because most people, okay, get defeated when this process doesn't work out, right? They're so talented. They've created this amazing thing. Everyone has told them it's awesome. They're going and trying to sell it, and they've barely sold anything. And do you know what they normally do in that position? Look for people to blame. More often than not, they lash out at a myriad of this, that, and the others, which is all nonsense. Or they just get down and depressed, and they take it as a fear of rejection, and it completely demotivates them and kills them. This person in question has been at it for an entire year and change. I think maybe 2 years. And the sales have just not been mapping this person's expectations, right? And I said, get through the end of the year and then let's have a talk. And we got through the end of the year. We looked at the numbers. We looked at the revenue, and it's like, okay, you got to come to terms with the fact that you've not validated your art. This product, while beautiful, it's not selling. It doesn't matter whether or not it's beautiful. It matters whether or not people want to part with hard-earned dollars and cents to purchase what you've created. Okay. And in his case, it wasn't mapping to his expectations. So I was like, we have to pivot. We have to validate the art. We have to come up with some new styles. And so he had this incredible idea. And he's like, tell you what, I'm going to take a different photo of different subject material every single solitary day for 30 days. And I'm going to post it on Instagram, a different one, every single solitary day. And then I'm going to look at the feedback at the very end of it, and I'll see if I have any direction there. And I sat there and I listened to that, and I was like, it's a great idea. It's a fantastic idea. The concept of that, of trying all those different subject materials and taking them to market, in this sense, to social media, and seeing what the likes and comments and shares look like. Fundamentally, conceptually, I really like that. I added to it at the end of it. I was like, okay. And at the very end of those 30 days, you're going to order a smattering of prints of your favorite ones that you think will sell the best. And you're going to run a live art show with all of the images in the store, right? So here is my 30-day challenge. I'm attempting to sell all those 30. Now, how will that work in process? I don't know. We're going to test it. We're going to see. I got to test a whole bunch of different things like that, but I like it conceptually. I think that's thinking in the right position. It's like, I'm a talented photographer. I'm really good at what I do. I picked the wrong subject material. No one wanted it. I'm not going to get emotional about that. It's about how many arrows I fired, okay? Not whether or not I hit the bullseye in the first time. So you're going to go and try all these various different things. As long as you get it to market, I think that's on the right path. And so for the people that are in this bucket, I need to design a suite of services that's going to speak to them. So Art Storefronts Plus needs to serve those folks, right? So if you're in this bucket, understand the focus, understand it's a completely normal place to be. If it's not working out for you now, no one, it does not mean your art sucks or you suck or the market sucks or no one's buying art or everyone's broke or inflation or whatever it is. It just means you have not come up with something the market wants. The fact that you figured this out and you know is giving you the freedom to try something else. It is a remarkable position to be in. That's bucket number one. Bucket number two, okay, your art is validated. Could be recently, could be consistently over the last 30 years, could be anything in between. Perhaps you did shows and things. Perhaps you were selling through those exploitative galleries. However you did it, you sold a decent amount to a large amount, something in between of art to strangers. Congratulations, fantastic place to be. That's amazing. Problem, okay, you never really worked on your marketing. Never did. You never did it consistently. You never built an email list. You never emailed that email list. You don't even have records on everyone that's purchased your work over the years. If you do, I would call that a collector list. If you do, you've never really cultivated a relationship with them or followed up with them or communicated with them in the slightest, right? You've never taken social media seriously. You just hate it. You don't want to do it. You're over it, right? And the rough mass on this one, right? So bucket number one was roughly 2 out of 10 people, right? 20%. The rough mass on this one, or 70%, 7 out of 10 artists are in this, photographers are in this bucket. And it's an interesting spot, right? Because in many cases, you've had some level of success, a small level of success, up to like a large level of success, but you never took your marketing seriously. And it's a tough spot. It's a tough spot to be in. It's a tough spot to be in. When you've never marketed, when you've never taken it seriously, you fall into this trap like, wait a minute, I've been at this for a while. I've seen some level of success. I don't need to do these early stage startup type business moves. Like I'm established already, right? But the reality is that you're not. Your business is starting from scratch. It just is. Okay. You have an attention slash marketing slash lead problem. You need to acquire folks, okay, that you can sell your art to, that you can market to. You need to build out your collector list. You need to market consistently. You need to learn the basics of marketing. This is a big group. Okay. There's a lot of variance in this group, but largely it all comes down to marketing, learning marketing, generating leads, doing so consistently for years. Okay. Emphasis on the years part. And you need to focus on your marketing and never stop and never stop. And it's still the biggest problem you have in the business. And the business is never going to grow until you start generating, building up these marketing muscles and getting it to go. And no one ever tells you that it's going to take you 3 to 5 years to do this. It's going to take you 3 to 5 years to do this. Can we just say that? Can we just be honest and say that it's the truth? It's also important to say here, the vast majority of these folks have a full-time job. They just do. They're not full-time artists. If they don't have a full-time job, they have a side gig and this is their job, or they have a supportive spouse, or they're independently wealthy and they're in the inheritance business. God bless you. And cousin business is a booming. So most folks in this bucket do not have a massive amount of free time. Okay. It's not like they're full-time artists and they can focus on this. Time is their most precious commodity. Which is why an agency here is such an important play. You need help, right? The help can be so incredibly important. And most of the folks in here, and again, this was the thing that I like paused on a few seconds ago, is it's really, really hard because the majority of the people that are in this stage, that are in this part of the game, you've been at it for a while, right? And if you've been at it for a while, you're like, I don't need to go and do all of the stuff that people do when they're just getting started, right? Because I'm already past that. You have to get that out of your mind, because if you've never marketed consistently, you're basically just right back to step one. Now, it's wonderful because you've already validated your art and got that part done. And that's going to help you greatly, but there's no shortcut here. There's no shortcut here. It is a 0 to 1 problem, right? And 0 to 1 is like we say 0 to 1, but it's just getting the business spun up. You're essentially just getting the business spun up. And they're the most painful years. They are the hardest years. They are the biggest grind. You are going to want to be pulling your hair out of your head. And to be honest with you, the fact that it's a 3 to 5 year journey, the fact that there are zero shortcuts, the minute you start taking the shortcuts, you're setting the GPS from on the path to a successful and growing business back to hobbyist again. It's why everyone quits. It's why everyone quits. It's why everyone moves from website to marketplace to nonsensical thing that is not going to work, because nobody really at the end of the day wants to do the hard work here, right? Ultimately, this is why this podcast gets the downloads it does. It's why Art Storefronts is the business that it is, because this is the hardest problem to solve, right? This is the biggest bucket of you artists. Most of you who are listening to this likely fall into this bucket, and that's okay. It's still totally solvable. You need to learn to market. You need to focus on marketing consistently. And really, your biggest problem is you can never stop. You can never stop, which is where the emotional and the tech support and everything else comes in to keep you on the path, because there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows. And when the lows hit is when everybody quits. And usually it's 6 months or 9 months or a year and a half or two. And you get burned out because no one's giving you the perspective of how long it takes to actually build this business. And it is so critically important. My goodness, is it critically important? And if you just have a little emotional support, don't get me wrong, there are some artists that are just freaks that just understand. Because I would quit. Okay, I'll just tell you, I'd be a quitter. I'd get like a year and a half in and be like, what the hell am I doing? This is not working. And I quit. And some people are just able to stay focused and fight through it. And they get to year 5, year 6, year 7. The business just starts humming. It's beautiful. But most don't. So again, it's why an agency could be potentially so successful here. You can just give everybody a regular recurring little shot in the arm to keep them going. But anyway, yeah, I digress on bucket 2. Very important bucket. Or Storefronts Plus is going to exist for these folks. Bucket number 3 is a rare bucket. This is the bucket everyone wants to be in, right? And you're obviously your art is well and truly validated, and you have some marketing muscles built up. You have an email list, a collector list. You're communicating with that collector list consistently. The business is growing. And the rough mass is probably 10% on this, especially if I expand the revenue down to, like, you sold over $50,000 worth of work all the way up to many millions worth of work. And it's a great place to be. Like, you put in the work, you put in the time, you put in the energy, you put in the effort, and you grinded and you got there and you figured out how to crash through all those quitting points of life where everyone in bucket 2 quits and goes and does something else, right? It's an amazing place to be. What's interesting about this bucket is, in almost all of the cases, okay, the folks that I see that are traditionally in this bucket are successful for a number of different reasons that are not 100% reliant on smart digital marketing and regular, consistent digital marketing. Like, in many cases, these folks did shows for years and years, or they taught classes and built up a list, or they're unicorns and they're really just naturally good at marketing, or they all seem to have like some sort of interesting story of something creative that they figured out that's gotten them to that level. And it's usually not from having best in practice marketing chops. Sometimes it is and it's not, but there's always holes in their marketing still, is what I noticed, right? And I think what happens is when you start getting to this level and getting this level of success and measuring yourself against your peers, you're like, whoa, I'm up in the rarefied atmosphere. This is pretty awesome, as well as the income that comes with it. At that level of income, at that level size of business, working in the business, okay, ends up taking up more and more and more and more of your time. You're dealing with orders and some customer service and tax and accountants and this and that, and you tend to get a little complacent. You get happy with the level of success you have. You're like, you know what, this is pretty good. I'm doing pretty awesome right now. And it's interesting because I'll look at these folks marketing, and this is my own bias going into it, right? I'm like, there's no way they're that successful unless they're just hammering all of their marketing levels perfectly. And every time I go in, it's like, whoa, they're missing on this. Whoa, they're missing on that. Whoa, they're missing on that. They're not running consistent Facebook and Instagram ads. Their email is nowhere near as sophisticated as they could be. They only ran 1 live art show last year. What are they doing? Why aren't they being more aggressive with the lead capturing? They're speaking on a panel. They just crushed a live art show. Why weren't they capturing? So I see all these holes in their marketing, and the danger in this third bucket is complacency a little bit, for sure. the blind spots that happen because you reach that level of success. And so the level of help they need is still critically important. It's just a different kind of level of help and a little bit different focus. They just need to maintain the best practices of marketing, stay at it, don't get complacent, stay hungry, make sure you're following best practices and have the bandwidth to do all of it, right? So there's an agency product that services those people as well. But you really have to speak and work on and focus on the bucket that you're in. Are you in bucket one? Are you in bucket two? Or are you in bucket three? And what are the best things to do for each of those three buckets? And how do you know when you get out of one bucket and into the other bucket, right? And how do you make sure you always just keep yourself grounded, that you're working on the right things? I think is critically important. I think the focus is insanely important. And I think it is the difference between having a business that will never stop growing for you and one that doesn't. So I bring all that up to say, those are the three buckets. Okay, where you focus is absolutely everything. Going forward, I'm going to start referencing this a lot more. I think regardless of whether you just consume our content, you're listening to the podcast or on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever you are, okay, you fall into one of these three buckets. You need to be working on these three buckets. If you're a customer and you just signed up and you're never going to use the agency, I don't care. You're going to have all the DIY stuff and all the rest of the stuff that we provide in the back end. Fantastic. I'm still going to start placing you in buckets and talking more about the various different buckets. And one thing I had in my notes that I forgot to mention too, and especially as it pertains to bucket one, the art validation and the validation strategy, right? And validating your art. The most successful artists and photographers I see are constantly validating new ideas and new subject materials. They're constantly doing it. I don't know who taught them to do this, but I just noticed they do it, right? They are constantly changing things up and trying new styles. It's like something you can't even be taught, naturally born. Like, of course, it can be taught, but something that's just naturally born with the most successful. Like, I don't know how they figured it out, but they figured it out, and they're constantly doing it. So it's like when you're in bucket one of the most exciting things about being in bucket one is like once you realize that it's really just a mathematical formula, it's just a playbook to do the art validation, and you start doing it, you're going to be leveraging that for the rest of your career. That suite of marketing muscles, that group of marketing muscles, how you validate a new idea, you're going to be doing that for the rest of your career. And when you train yourself to just focus and get all of the nonsense off your plate and just focus on what's going to get you to an answer as quick as possible, my goodness, it's powerful. I need to train myself on doing it all the time. Like it's a muscle you keep growing. So I'm going to start designing more content, speaking to the bucket where you are. I'm going to place you in the buckets. I'm going to ask you what bucket you think you're into. I want to even get some actual buckets as props. I don't know. But I think to the extent that I can help you identify where you are, what's important to focus on, and you can start getting some of the nonsensical stuff off your plate, I think you're going to win. So on that note, thanks for listening. And as always, have a great day. Sorry for Instagram. I know I'll fix the phone thing.